There we go.
She just learned nested loops in Excelis. That's her homeschooling program. And then she learned how to do nested loops in there just last week.
Oh, that works out.
So yeah, that's good for her then to see how to do this nested loop then.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to have a couple plans for how to teach Bubble Thort.
Hmm.
Let me give me one moment here. Oh, I would also recommend Khan Academy. I know I haven't tried Excel; it's probably good. But if you ever get bored of that, there is Khan Academy. That's how I learned.
Yeah, she's doing her math on there.
Mm.
So do you plan for today also for um the tech one? Like you said last time, you can name an own tag like navbar or something.
Yeah. That kind of thing is I realized it's a little more like experimental and like it's just not really necessary to learn how to do that in HTML. It would be better to just a little like wait a little bit and then learn React and Angular and stuff. Um,
Oh, I see.
it's a little complex to like create component structures in HTML and it's not really necessary anymore. It's much easier to do it in something like Angular or React. But I will get to stuff like that soon.
Looking forward, how do you explain Angular in an hopefully understandable and easy way? I tried several times to get my head around it, but no.
Yeah.
I made some project with Next.js,
Yeah.
yeah, for example. That's fine. But with Angular, I could never really. I don't understand the structure.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe actually we'll get into that next week. I'm really excited to teach it because it's something I really love. And it's something I use a
Okay,
lot,
good
so
for
it's
the
good for
warning.
me.
Good for the
Um
warning because from then on we have to have the standalone version on the computer, right?
yeah, that's the one
Or
thing. I know at least one person doesn't have like can't download anything on their computer, so I'm looking into a way to do it in React, but you can only use Angular JS. I've seen, which is like an older version of Angular and isn't very good. But maybe I could just like teach it so that they know how to do it. I'm not sure. I'll have to figure something out there. Hello. Welcome, welcome.
interesting is here for the templates they have Next.js they have in
Yeah,
Replit.
yeah, they actually have like a lot of stuff in REPL. I thought they also have React, which I might want to try. I'm not great at React. I'm actually like learning it right now. Because I learned Angular first.
Yeah. Have you ever do something with Next or Vue.js? Vue.js is quite.
I've
I found it a lot easier than React.
Yeah, I haven't heard of Next. I did do some stuff with Vue a while ago, but I couldn't tell you anything I did with it. Um, I find that the like this, I find that I just like Angular. The structure, it has a bit of a learning curve, right? But once you get that done with that learning curve, it is so fun. It is so easy. Um, and they have the Angular CLI now, which just lets you have a command, you run you get the entire giant template ready for you. It's great.
Okay, good.
But
I'm
yeah,
looking really forward. Oh, they have React, by the way. React and
yeah,
TypeScript. They have.
yeah. I
So
think
theoretically, you could do it in grapple.
yeah, I think I'll probably go ahead and teach React anyways. Once I'm finished learning with it, because I don't know everything about it right now. I used it a long time ago, but I don't remember much about it. But React is the one that's used more in companies right now. So probably good to teach you that instead of Angular. But either way, all frameworks are just great because of the component structure, really. I mean, as a more casual developer, you don't really care about speed, But just for casual developers, just the component structure is so nice to be able to create large multi-page apps very easily.
The multi-page or a single-page app? Vue is a single-page app later, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. React and Angular are single page.
Single page, yes.
Yeah. Oh, all right. We'll go ahead and I'm not sure if Lucky will be able to come today. Because I changed the class. I had an emergency on Tuesday, so I had to change the class time there. But by the way, next class will be on Tuesday as normal. How are you doing today, Saul?
Good. Thank you.
All right. Um, Today we're going to go in a bit of a different direction and learn what's called shoot sorting. Basically, it's a more higher level JavaScript kind of thing, so it's gonna be good to learn it. And it's definitely very necessary for learning coding. It's a kind of the middle step you need to do, and it gets into the more mathematical side of coding, which is fun. So we'll go ahead and just start now. I am recording, right? Let me double check. I am. All right, we'll go ahead and go on REPL, and this time we'll do Node. Type in Node and click on node.js, and then click Create REPL. A little different from normal. And if you have if you're wondering why it's called node.js and not just JavaScript, it's because REPL doesn't have just a JavaScript option. There are two things you can do on REPL. You can either have an HTML page and run JavaScript from the HTML page, which is how you would do it on your computer in a normal way. There is also Node, which is the backend or the server, not really server side, but the non front end side. Okay, let me define those terms real quick. Front end, when it comes to web development, is what the user sees. Basically, the HTML, the JavaScript in the HTML, the CSS, or whatever other framework you're using. The front end is the actual website. The back end is what the user doesn't see. It's all the stuff that's running to make the website work, to communicate with the database. For example, when you log into a website, you click the login button, which is in the front end. That login button tells the back end hey, okay, here's the user's information. Now go ask the server, or like the database, does this user exist? Then the database will give it back to the backend. The backend will then tell the front end, yes, it does, so show this. And Node.js is how you write JavaScript in the backend. For a long time, there wasn't a way to write JavaScript in the backend, so you would write like JavaScript and HTML in the front end, then you would use something like Ruby or Java in the backend. But with Node.js, there is a way, and because I know we're not going to be writing any HTML for this lesson, I'll just use the Node.js option on REPL. It's okay if you didn't understand any of that. All right. And is everyone ready to code? Everyone on REPL? All right. So the first thing we're going to talk about here is, again, sorting. Basically, the idea of sorting is, okay, you have a list of numbers. In JavaScript, we call that an array. So let's say I have an array, let array equals, then square brackets. Remember, that's how we make an array. And then in the array, we'll have the numbers 4, 6, 1, 0, 9, 6. Just a bunch of random numbers here. And most importantly, these numbers are not in order. And you will see this a lot when you work with like large numbers in data. So a very big question that comes up in higher level coding is, how do you sort a very large number of numbers? Or numbers. Now, there are many different ways to actually sort something, but let's start thinking about how you would go about sorting a list. Unfortunately, JavaScript or any coding language doesn't know how to just, okay, look at this. Okay, I see a 0. Let me just put the 0 here, put the 1 here. It doesn't know how to just see all of them at once, you know? It can only read one value at a time. So there are many ways to actually go about sorting something. Today we will talk about probably the simplest way, though one of the more inefficient ways, which is bubble sort. Bubble sort is a named method of sorting by basically just swapping numbers until the array is sorted. For example, what bubble sort will do is that it will see this array. It will see, okay, 4 and 6. 4 is less than 6, so we will keep it like that. Okay, 4, 6. Now 6 and 1. Well, 1 is less than 6, so we'll swap those two. So we'll put the 1 here, the 6 here. 6 and 0. 6 is greater than 0, so we'll swap those again. So we have 0 here, and then again the 6. 6 and 9. 9 is greater than 6, so that stays. And then 9 and 6 again, so we'll swap those two. And then we get this. And the interesting thing about this and why it's called bubble sort is that what you end up doing is you end up bubbling up the big numbers and moving them to the front. And the big numbers that are right at the front stay where they are. And then what you do is you just keep doing this. You keep saying, okay, 4 and 1, swap those. 4 and 0, swap those. 4 and 6, keep. 6 and 6, keep. 6 and 9, keep. 1 and 0, swap. 0 and 4, swap. Or no, sorry, keep. Or no, it'd be now 1 and 4, keep. 6 and 6, keep. 6 and 6, keep. 9, keep. And now we have a fully sorted array. Any questions about anything I just said? All right. Now, here's the question: how do we actually do this in practice? Before I get to that, I will talk about a bit about the mindset when coming to this, because this is just one way to sort an array. Another way would be to randomize each number in the array, put it in a random order, and then check to see if it's correct. If it's not correct, just randomize them again. Basically, you're taking all the numbers, mixing them in a bag, and seeing if they fell into place correctly. Eventually, that will work. Eventually, by pure chance, you will get a correctly sorted array. That is going to take so long that for any large amount of numbers, even just like more than 20, it would take just unfathomably long to get it correct. But something like this, where you just, take a big number and kind of bubble it up and then just keep swapping numbers, it's going to take much less time. How long we'll talk about in a bit, but it's called efficiency. It's more efficient than the random way of sorting. And there's way more efficient ways than even bubble sort, but they all have their different uses, and bubble sort is the most simple. So let's get into actually writing the function, or writing the actual way you would do bubble sort. I'm going to write it in 3 different ways. The first way is going to be the most simple, then I'll write it in slightly more efficient ways. But first of all, I'm going to make the function let bubble sort equal function, and then left parenthesis, and then I put array here, or ARR. ARR is the standard programmer abbreviation for the word array. So let bubble sort equals function ARR, left curly braces. And remember, when you're putting variables inside the parentheses here, you're basically saying that the function will take a parameter. And the name of this parameter will be array. So, the first way I'm going to show to make bubble sort will be by having first a variable let, and we'll call it unsorted. The variable will be called unsorted. We'll set it to true because we assume that at first it's not going to be sorted. Then we'll have while left parenthesis unsorted. We don't need to do equals to true or anything because this is a Boolean value, which means it is already true. So at the start, this will always be true. While unsorted, left bracket here, or left curly brace. And now we'll do something called nesting a for loop. We did this a while ago, so I'll kind of explain it as we go. Basically, inside the while loop, we will put a for loop. So for let I equals 0, I is less than array dot length minus 1. Again, I'll talk about why we're doing minus 1 in a bit. And then semicolon I plus plus left curly brace. I'll give everyone a chance to catch up here, and you can tell me when you're done. All right. Now, as you see here, obviously, when I run it, I'm just going to have an infinite loop because unsorted will always be true. So don't run anything just yet. But what we have here is a while loop that will have an end statement later, and then a for loop within it. Now what I'm going to do here is inside the for loop, we do if array and then square bracket j plus 1 less than sign array j, and then curly braces to finish that if statement. And what I'm saying here is that inside the for loop, which is looping through the array, or at least, incrementing I until I is less than the length of the array minus 1. I think, again, we'll get to the minus 1 in a second. Now, if array j plus 1, which is going to be at first the second number of the array, because remember, I equals 0. The 0th element is the first one, so 0 plus 1 is 1. So the first, or the array 1 is the second element. So if 6 is less than array j, with array j at first. Oh wait, shoot, actually I wrote j instead of I should really write I here. Or, you know what, we'll write I for now. Okay, sorry. Basically, all this is doing is saying, okay, is the second element less than the first element? If it is, what we're going to do is swap them. Now, you can't just say swap in JavaScript, obviously, and you can't really say something like ARR I equals ARR I plus 1, and then like this. Don't write this down, by the way. You can't do this. Anyone have any guesses why? Because it seems like we're setting the first element equal to the second element, and the second element equal to the first element. Can anyone tell me why this wouldn't work?
Because you overwrote it, the I element already.
Yes.
In the first line, you overwrote it. So in the second line, it would be basically the same one again.
Yeah, correct. Basically, remember, array I plus 1 right now, at the very beginning, at the first iteration, the first loop, the first pass through, it is 6. And now you're saying, okay, the first element, which is usually 4, is now equal to 6. And then you're saying, okay, the second element, which is still 6, is equal to the first element, which is now 6. So what we're going to need to do is do something very similar, but have let temp standing for temporary, let temp equals array I, or we'll do, array I, and then array I equals array I plus 1, and then array I plus 1 is equal to array I. I'll give everyone a second to write that down, and you can tell me when you're done.
Are you sure that's correct like this? Because you're overwriting again? Shouldn't you use the temp variable instead? Your microphone is off, I guess.
Sorry. Okay. Yes, you're right. Thank you. Um, it should be instead of array I here. You're right. It should be temp. All right. Good job. Um, and right now, by the way, it would still be an infinite loop. We never change unsorted, but we have almost everything in place here. We have a for loop that will go through the entire length of the array and swap each element. We're saying, okay, if the second element is less than the first element, swap them, then increment I. So now I is 1. So now if the third element, I plus 1, if the third element is less than the second element, swap them and just keep going and keep swapping. And this should also show you why we're doing -1 here, because when I is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, when I is 4, we're saying if array 5 is less than array 4. And then if so, swap them. If we were to not have this -1, we would go to all the way to array 5 and say if array 5 or if array 6 is less than array 4. And since there isn't any array 6, it would give us a out of bounds error. So we always have to do -1 because we actually want to go to the second to the last and compare it to the last. Now, we almost for sure know that bubble sort isn't going to work on the first pass. We're not going to be able to just swap each one and it'll work the first time. It would be an almost sorted list at that point. So the point of unsorted is that if you ever do a full pass and never change anything, that means the array is now sorted. Each item is greater than the item before it. Which is why we have unsorted here, because if it's still sorted, if you did change something, it is still unsorted and you will just do the for loop again. So what I'm going to do here is in the for loop, but outside of the if statement, I'm going to write unsorted is equal to true. And then in the if statement, I'll write unsorted is equal to false. What this is doing is at the beginning of each iteration of the for loop. Oh wait, I just realized that would that would not work actually. We need to put the unsorted outside of the for loop. Unsorted is equal to true. We need to put that outside of the for loop.
We come into the while loop already with an unsorted equals true, isn't it?
Yes, that is because we have the unsorted equals true outside, and then oh wait. No, shoot, okay. I'm getting confused with my booleans here. We need unsorted equals false here. and then unsorted equals true inside the if statement. Okay, this is the correct one.
Yes, that makes sense.
Basically, what this does, thank you, is if this if statement is ever triggered, if you ever need to swap something, unsorted will now turn to true. And then the while loop will keep running. If you ever go an entire for loop, the entire length of the array, without ever triggering the if statement and ever turning the unsorted equal to true, unsorted will stay false, and then the next iteration of the while loop will be false and it will stop. And if you are done writing that code there, just the unsorted, put done in chat. All right, and we need to do one more thing here actually, is at the end of the while loop, I have on line 17 here, the very end of the while loop, make a new line and write return array. Return is, I feel like we have used this before. Basically, the function will now give back the correct array. Return is sort of like the output for a function. The initial array here is the input. Return will give the output, the newly sorted array. And make sure to be wary of your curly braces here. You're going to want only one curly brace after the return. You want it at the root of the function, because you have a curly brace here for the while loop, a curly brace here for the for loop, and another one for the if statement. So make sure to kind of think about that. If you put your cursor here or your line indicator on one of the curly braces, you can actually see which curly brace REPL thinks that goes to. It gets highlighted here, so you can kind of see where everything goes. And now I should be able to take a bad array, like there's an unsorted array, and at the end of this function, I would do counsel.log, and then I'll do bubble sort, make sure to spell that right, left parenthesis, and then in the bubble sort parameter, I'll type in ARR for the array up here. And now when I run it, I get back a sorted array. Give you a chance to catch up on the code there, and when you're done, you can run it, and if you get the sorted array, put done in chat. And if you don't get a sorted array, make sure to tell me that.
Can you move up a little bit?
Yeah.
The last, no, the
Oh,
last
here?
slide. The last slide. The console.log.
Oh, yeah, here.
Yeah, could not see. Okay.
Can you teach how to time this thing so we can see how many milliseconds it will take?
Good question. I believe I know how to do that. I will talk about a couple things to do with that, but
Because that would be great if for example trying different sorting things so we can compare them. At the moment I have My result is. Can I copy in the chat? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I believe you can copy code and put in the chat.
I think so. So these are my two results, but I don't know which one is faster yet. I sorted it with two approaches, and would be nice to see if it was faster. I know there's a way to time them.
Yeah, well there's a couple ways. Here, I don't okay, council. Okay. Yeah, actually here we go. I will do it right now. Council dot time. That put function start, and then after all this, I will do council dot time end, and then function end. Let me see if that works. Um, hmm. Oh wait, or do I? Oh wait, no, I need to do. Okay, never mind. I need to do bubble sort. I need to put that into the console. Ah, there we go. Yeah. You do time and then the name of the function you want to time, and then after the function you put time end. And then here I get 5.9 milliseconds. Although I will say, the speed at which a function works can usually be determined by the actual function. I will talk about that in a second. There's a whole principle in coding called Big O, which is basically the worst case scenario and also big data, which is the average scenario, which are usually the same. Basically, how long it's going to take based on the number of values in an array. Because really, when talking about these functions, it's mostly going to be determined. The length is going to be determined by the amount of numbers in the array. For example, if I were to add a bunch of numbers here, and run that, I get a much longer time, 85 milliseconds. Now, the real question is it's not whether or not the bubble sort, right, can take a certain amount of time. It's the scalability of bubble sort. Like, when you start expanding the amount of time this array would take, the amount of numbers in the array, how does the function react to that? But yes, looks like the second version of that function performed much better.
Bubble sort performed better. Yes, that's interesting.
And especially for smaller amounts like this, bubble sort is going to tend to be a little better.
Yeah, it looks like it.
Because something
yes.
like merge sort, right? It does more steps to work for larger things. When it comes to small numbers, it's going to be a little iffy. Also, I suggest trying to run it multiple times because sometimes one machine thing can make it longer. Like if I run this a couple times, like here I got 5 milliseconds bubble sort. Here I'm getting 6, 5. It looks like I'm not getting that 85 anymore, so definitely run it a few times.
I did, but it's always the internal one is always a lot slower.
Yeah.
Can you see
That's
the
the
last
JavaScript.
Oh, yeah.
one? So the last one, time in. Oh, time in.
So I just for comparison, I just used array sort like this. And that's a lot slower.
Yeah, array sort I believe uses quick sort. All the default stuff uses quick sort. And again, quicksort is very good for the larger stuff, but bubble sort is going to be good for different things. All the sorting algorithms have a purpose. One isn't just by default quicker than another. They all have different purposes, and depending on usually one what kind of data you're sorting, like the differences in numbers and how much data you're sorting, you're going to get a lot of different times.
I have syntax error.
Oh, okay. Um, Go ahead and share your screen. It's okay, totally okay. All right. On line 3, you're using square brackets instead of parentheses for the function.
Oh,
I believe that's a problem.
okay.
Yeah, for functions, we always want parentheses here. Same thing we do with like counsel or how we invoke bubble sort here. We use parentheses. We only use square brackets when dealing with arrays.
Function. ARR.
One more question. Wouldn't it be more useful to have the temp variable be initialized outside or inside the function in the beginning of the function, and then just use the temp equals instead of let temp, because we are in the middle of a loop. If we declarate a variable in the middle of the loop, it's not very time efficient, isn't it?
Yes, that is probably correct. Yeah. Same reason why nowadays we don't have a let I equal 0. We actually try to go outside here, let I outside, and then I equal 0. It's for simple stuff. It's not going to be that much of a problem. Uh, and besides, there's like newer ways of swapping arrays, anyways nowadays. Oh, I don't think you can use it on REPL. I'll have to see.
Have a different way of swap?
Yeah, actually, I'm not sure you can do it on this REPL. I'm not sure if this is using ESX, but I saw recently there's like a fancy new way of swapping items in an array. I haven't tried it yet, but I have seen it.
Without it internally using a helper variable? Really?
It might be. I haven't actually looked much into it. But it seems to be fine. Also, at the end of the day, especially when having just like small variables like this, it's not going to be that much slower. I know that's probably
I
not
don't
a
know.
very good way
I
of
don't know with the garbage collector of Node.js, but if you do it in C sharp, it makes a big difference, because you fill up the every time you do a let or a variable declaration inside a loop, it will fills up memory. So after that, after a few seconds, it will have the garbage collector do a lot of work, and your game runs a lot slower than it should.
yeah. Um,
I'm not
Especially in
sure for
terms of games, yeah, you definitely want to be more careful. Although things like Java are going to be more high level, so it can deal with things like that. Especially, especially JavaScript is pretty good at being forgiving for inefficiencies. It will deal with a lot of stuff for you. But yeah, things like C sharp, more lower level languages aren't going to do as well. You're, you trade ease of use for more manual control, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, especially in a game, you're going to get a lot of problems with memory.
Yeah, especially because you have a different frame rate then. Every time the garbage collector is working, the frame rate is going down. So you try to avoid that as much as possible.
Yeah. But yeah, I'd say in terms of JavaScript, this is not a big deal. Declaring variables inside of a for loop, it's not that much of a difference. If you're doing something that really need like complete efficiency, then yeah, you don't necessarily want to be declaring every time. But JavaScript not only has a way of dealing with it, it's just not going to be that much of a difference. All right. And Saul, is it working now?
Yeah. Thank
All
you.
right. And do you have any questions about anything talked about? Yeah. um, and would you say you think you understand how this works? Because I can keep explaining it.
So what the position of the false and true, that where we put inside the loop or outside, whatever.
Oh yeah. You just put unsorted outside the loop here. And then you have unsorted equals false right after the while loop, and unsorted equals true inside the if statement. And that doesn't have to do with the garbage collection stuff that Vinny was talking about. But do you have any questions about bubble sort specifically, like how that works? You don't need to worry about the other stuff.
Is in ascending order.
Yes, it will sort it in ascending order. If you actually didn't want that to happen, you could do it this way: do greater than sign, and then you'll swap it.
Maybe for understanding, you could put a console log
Oh
every
yeah,
time, every inside the loop, so you can see how it develops.
yeah, good idea. Here, I'll cancel that log. I'll cancel the log I, and then also the array here. That way you can see. Okay. You know what? Let me do a smaller array. Let's go back to the initial one. Let me clear that and then run it again. Okay. So what you can see here is that we start with the normal array, right? We got oh wait. Okay, we don't start with the what's going on here? Oh, there we go. Okay, at I equals 0, we have the normal array 461,096. And then when I equals 1, we have wait, because it should nothing. Okay, I'm not sure why nothing changed there. Okay, but at least by 2 we have some changes. We have basically it has gone through and it has swapped the 1 and the 6. Oh right, yeah, because okay. Sorry, I'm confused on my own councils. Okay. When I equals 0, we have it like this. When I equals 1, we're asking, okay, is 6 less than 1? It is. So when I equals 2, we're going to start off by seeing, okay, we swapped 6 and 1. Now I equals 2, and we're going to say, okay, 6 and 0. Is 6 less than 0? It is. So we swap them. We see here 0 is now before 6. And then we do the same thing with 6 and 9. 6 and 9 are the same, so we'll keep those. And then we get 6 and 9 here, and we swap them, we get like this. It seems a little confusing here because it's actually like 1 off. Might be better if we put the council after the switch. Here, I'll cancel the log it after the switch. All right, so we see on the first path, we didn't change anything. Second path, we sorry, I feel I'm confusing myself here. Okay, I'm gonna go back. All right. Does this help at all? I feel like I just confused myself there, but basically, all it's doing is it just keeps swapping here. And then once it gets to, why is it only going to 3? Because, well, when I equals 2, it's here, and then let me clear it and try again.
Eh,
Okay, now it's working. Must have just been weird council stuff. Okay. So if you see here at 0, that means that it has now restarted, right? It goes from 0 to 4 each time, checking the first 2, and then if the second one is less than the first one, it keeps swapping them. Here it swapped 6 and 1. Here it swapped 6 and 9. Here it swapped 9 and 6. And then that is not actually done. We still swapped a lot, so it is now going to restart the while loop. Unsorted is still true, so it will restart going from 0. We have 4 is less than 1, so we swap those. 4 is less than 0, so we swap those. 4 is not less than 6, so we keep that. 6 is not less than 6, so we keep that. 6 is not less than 9, so we keep that. Same thing with it. And then we still swapped, so we go to 0. 1 is less than 0, swap that. Everything else stays the same. And then we keep checking, right? We keep checking each one. It is still the same each time. Go to 0 again, restart one more time, and here we see each time it is the same thing every single time. And so we did no swaps, so we know we are actually correct now, and we return the newly sorted list. Does that help at all?
It's one way to do it. You could also do 2 loops, right? One loop is taking the first one compared with all others in the array, and then the second one
Yeah.
compare with all others, and so on. This is what I normally know as bubble sort, that you take one number and compare it with all others in the loop, and then in the array, and then take the next one and compare, and so on.
Yeah. There's also even more efficient way than that had too. I'm showing the sort of base way. Basically, just keep sorting until you stop sorting. And if we have time, I might show more and more efficient ways to write it. Because if you see here, we have like entire iterations where we're not changing anything. There's a more efficient way than that. But for now, I would like to just keep explaining. And Saul, how are you feeling honestly with bubble sort? I know it's very complicated subject. How lost are you? Okay, pretty lost. All right. Any particular questions you can think of?
Mm, So it compare the 0 to 1 and then one loop. And the second loop, it compare the second to 3, number 3, number 2 and number 3, right?
Yeah.
They keep going like that. Okay.
Yeah. In fact, here, let me show. There's a lot of little examples of like how each sorting algorithm works. Okay, sorting algorithm. Trying to remember now. Visualized. There we go. And then you can see here. Let me show you bubble sort. Let me try to. Here, how do
Yeah,
I
but this
full
is the
screen
bubble
that?
sort. This is the bubble sort I was talking about. You take one number and it bubbles up, not two in a row. So you have already a different algorithm, different bubble algorithm.
Yeah. Yeah. I see that. I believe this is still effectively the same thing because by bubbling up, what you're really doing is comparing each one and swapping them like that, right? Like, here, oh, shoot. There we go. Okay, if you see here, the idea is that we are, yeah, feel pretty good. The let's say each bar here. Can you see this, guys? Can you see what I have here?
Yeah, sure.
We have each bar being a random number. Bigger bars are bigger numbers, smaller bars are smaller numbers. This is a randomly sorted array. And the idea is that we are taking, we keep swapping them until effectively what you're doing is bubbling large numbers to the top, or in this case, we're bubbling small numbers to the top just because like the way it's visualized. And here, big numbers are staying at the bottom. We're bubbling small numbers up to the top. The way we're doing that is just by swapping it until you hit a number that is larger than you, right? Let's say there's 6 at the bottom here. We keep swapping them until we hit a number that, in this case, is smaller than 6. So we like hit a 4, and I know, okay, 6 can stay there. Okay, and then again. And yeah, this is actually a slightly more efficient way than the one here, but it's a little bit more complicated.
No, the other way around. More efficient is the way we have implemented here now. But
Well,
original,
this
this
is
is more efficient because it takes less loop steps. What we have implemented here, it takes less loop steps than the original bubble sort.
uh maybe, but not more than this particular bubble sort right here. This one you see actually each step it doesn't go to the end. It's just a slight difference from ours. See, the red line here gets smaller and smaller each time. Ours, if you see here, it will go to the end of the for loop every single time. It will go to the end of the array every single time. You don't need to do that. You can just go to where you've left off, basically, so it gets smaller and smaller.
Oh yeah, okay.
It's
Oh, yeah,
still
right.
the same big O time, but not the same data.
Right. You don't have to compare the first ones anymore at the end.
Yeah.
Yes.
And if you have time, I'll show that as well. But this is a little bit more simple. Remember, the idea is that we're just swapping each item in the array. We just keep swapping them and until we get to an item that is correctly placed. See, here we have this. We swap the 6 and the 1, right? The 6 goes up. 6 is up here. We swap the 6 and the 0. 6 goes up. We do not swap the 6 and the 9. And that's kind of the idea, right? Is that you're bubbling that 6 up to the front. And then here we do one more step and we swap the 9 and the 6 as well. And if you can imagine here, let's say we have a 100 at the very beginning. I'll clear the log. And if I run it, oh, now it looks a little messy here. We'll take out a 6. Take out a couple of stuff here. All right, and here we can actually see that 100 go from the first to 1 and then keep being swapped until it's bubbled up to the front. And then after that, we just keep sorting the rest of the stuff. But it's a good way of showing that the idea of bubble sort again is that you're basically just keep moving the big numbers to the front.
Mm.
And then the small numbers stay where they are. All right. Did that help at all, Saul? Oh, and just so you know, it is perfectly okay if you didn't understand any of this. Sorting is a very complicated topic. Don't get discouraged by not understanding it. It is a very complicated topic, and just the more you kind of look at it, the more you think about it, the easier it will get as you go. But right now, from a scale of 1 to 10, how lost are you? Saul?
Okay. You're not bad.
Hello. I just want to make sure I haven't killed you there. Um, yeah, the first time I went into learning I also got completely lost. Especially bubble sort. I know for like in a programmer mind, it seems easy, but it's not. Here, actually, I have a couple interesting ways of showing here. Let's 1 second. Really, I should have probably shown more about bubble sort before I show you how to implement bubble sort. But for the remaining time, I'm going to go ahead and try to show more about bubble sort. Give me 1 second. Have a couple of resources here. Sorry, give me 1 moment. Um, All right, okay, I can't find that particular one, but I will instead show you how in an array. So let's take this array, and I'll just go through each step here. So the first path, I would see, okay, 100 is less than 4. So let's swap those two, right? Next one, 100 is less than 6. I will swap those two. 100 less than 1, swap. 100 is less than 0, and swap. I've now bubbled the 100 up to the top. And we'll do that one more time. 4 is less than 6. We can keep that there. 6 is... wait, no. Yeah, sorry. 6 is greater than... Wait, no. Okay. 6 is not less than 1, so we will swap them. 6 is not less than 0, so we'll swap those. And now we have bubbled the 6 up to the front. And 6 is less than 100, so we'll keep that there. 4 and 1, we'll swap those. 4 and 0, we'll swap those. 4 and 6, we do not need to swap. That is in the correct order. And we'll still check 6 and 100, and that is still correct. Now we'll check 1 and 0, we'll swap those. And we'll check 1 and 4, 4 and 6, 6 and 100. Okay, those are all fine. And now for our final path, we'll check 0 and 1, 1 and 4, 4 and 6, 6 and 100. And those are all good. We did no swaps, so it is all correctly sorted. Any questions there? All right. All right, so purely in terms of bubble sort, how do you feel? How lost are you? Purely in terms of just that example.
It's okay.
Okay.
It's okay. You just compare the two number
Yeah.
until in the order.
Yeah. It's really not.
How often is this
Sorry.
important topic? Like how often we need to use this sorting thing?
To be honest, not much. Unless you're really in that particular field, you don't actually, or you're not gonna really use it that much. You can just use like Finya did, which was array at sort. They have a function for that. No, you're almost never gonna be writing the functions out. But it is good to at least know about it and know roughly how they work.
Mm-hmm.
More just like as a developer, you're going to need to know how they work.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Um,
it's especially good. It's especially good to learn about nested loops, how they work, and get your head around how this algorithm thinking works.
yeah. Yeah, essentially what, yeah, Finya said it well. It's called logarithmic thinking, the idea of coding for a purpose. You're not just trying to do this one thing. You're actually trying to do a important thing here, which is sort an array. And there are many different logarithms that you'll encounter, and it's good to understand the idea of how they work. And especially here, just for coding practice, understanding, yeah, nested for loops, or in this case, just nested loops. But it's totally fine if you don't really understand it right now. As you go on, you start understanding it more and more. No one got explained bubble sort. I was like, oh, okay, I get it. You have to keep kind of learning it, and as you go, you get more and more comfortable with it. But no, you're never gonna have to remember how to like code it. Just know that when people talk about bubble sort, what they mean is that idea of bubbling up numbers. And there are a lot of sorting logarithms.
Yeah, while bubble sort is good for this nested loop idea, the quick sort you can learn how recursive
Yeah.
functions, right?
I believe so, yeah. Also, merge sort. Merge sort is very good for learning recursive functions. And merge sort is just cool. Um, but yeah, we'll get to that. Yeah, basically, um, this is one of those things in programming that is much more advanced than the normal stuff, but it's expected that you at least know of it. Expected that you at least have some knowledge of it. If you ask your average programmer to write merge sort, they probably couldn't do it. But if you ask them what merge sort is, they would probably be able to kind of explain the idea of it. All right. Um, for our remaining time here, we're going to actually um I'll go ahead and show you real quick the more efficient way of doing this. Basically, as you see here with our 100s, right? We have the first one is correct, right? We go from 100 to bubbling up to the very top. We do that very efficiently. After that, you notice that we keep checking here if 0 is less than 100 or if 6 is less than 100. We'll actually just keep having a iteration just to check if 6 is less than 100. And we already know it's true. You see here we have iteration 2, we're checking if 4 is less than 6. Iteration 3, we're checking if 6 is less than 100. And both times we never change anything. It would be more efficient if we could just narrow it down, narrow down the amount of changing we're doing as we go on. So I'm going to go ahead and change a couple things here. It shouldn't be too hard to do. I'm going to remove all our unsorted variables. And also, by the way, if you are already lost, you don't have to worry about this. You can just take a bit of a break for now. You don't need to write it down, and maybe later this week, watch it in the recording and see if maybe you can understand it. I'll also post some links on Facebook for some other videos that will explain bubble sort better. I know Harvard has a very good demonstration on how bubble sort works. But all right, so I took out all the unsorted variables. I'm now going to take out this line of the while loop and just replace it with a for loop. I'll do for let, I'll do j this time. J equals 0. J is less than array dot length, j plus plus, and then the left curly brace. REPL is going to give me a right curly brace as well. I'm going to remove that. That's because I'm using the curly brace from the while loop. If you see here, I have this curly brace connecting to this curly brace, this one to this one, and this one to this one. And the only other change I'm going to do is in this array.length, I'm going to go minus I, or so, no, minus j. Here, let I equal 0, I is less than array.length minus j minus 1. All this is doing is it's going to do the exact same thing as last time, except each time we do an iteration, we're going to go one less. Basically, here I'll go ahead and console.log it here. I'll run it. It is taking a while, so I believe I might have made a mistake. That should all be right. Let me try it again. Here, I'm gonna go ahead and oh, there we go. Oh, unthoried is not defined. Do I have an unthoried somewhere? I don't. I'm gonna go ahead and refresh REPL. Read length of undefined. What is going on here? Sorry, I'm having a little bit of trouble here for some reason. Oh, right. Okay, I need a -1 here. No? Okay. Well,
Do you have array in the top line 3? Is that correct? You don't have an array? You have
oh, that's why yeah, I was doing it for demonstration purposes. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Right, I forgot about that. Okay. So now if I go back, add that console.log again, do I, and then array. There we go. Now, as you can see, we go I equals 0, I equals 1, I equals 2, I equals 3, all the way, bring that 100 to the top, and then I equals 0, I equals 2, I equals, or I equals 1, I equals 2. So only bringing, checking all the way up to this 6 and 0 here. And then we're going I equals 0, I equals 1, only checking up to the 1 and 0 up here. And then just 0, just checking this I and 1 and 0 here and swapping that. And now this is effectively the exact same thing, just less steps for the computer to do. It's slightly quicker. And if I run this a couple times, we'll find it's not going to look much quicker, but it's quicker, less steps. When it comes to really large amounts of data, it's going to be a lot quicker. And basically, instead of just checking every time, like, did I make a change? All this is doing is basically we know that if we do a whole loop of changing for every single item in the array, right, then you're going to get it correct. Basically, we don't need to check every time that it is, correct. We don't need to check every single time is it still correct. We just know that if you do a whole round of swapping for every single item in the array, it's going to be correct.
Okay. I think I will let Finja watch the video and then, especially the visualizing, this bubble sort visualizing
Yes,
exercise. I like it.
I'll post a
And
link for this. I'll also post a link for another video on like visualizing bubble sort.
what what language is this here? What is it,
Uh,
Python or what?
this is all JavaScript. Or do you
No,
mean here?
no,
Oh yeah,
yeah.
that is
I'm
That
not sure
looks
what that
weird
is.
to me. I'm not sure what that is.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I don't know what. Is it just pseudocode? No, it's already a language, isn't it? Maybe Python. I'm not sure.
I good question. I am. It almost looks like basic or something. I'm not sure.
Okay, but it's good. You can use it pseudocode, so Sylphania can do it in JavaScript. Then I let her watch the different sort algorithms and let her convert them to JavaScript.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Um, I will probably hold off on doing a video on merge Thor until we have everyone understanding this more. Because merge Thor is going to be a whole thing. Merge Thor, it took me forever to understand merge Thor. But again, it's totally fine if you don't understand this, especially this new line here. I
Merge
would
sort
suggest.
was
Wait,
merge sort was more difficult than heap sort. I had my problem with heap sort. So in 10th grade, I had to do a presentation for Quicksort, and then the teacher wanted me to do some heap sort, and I couldn't find it out then.
oh yeah. Yeah, for me, the idea of merge sort, like how to visualize it, was fine, but recursive functions just I could not understand it in my head. Um, but then, my dad helped me, like just walked me through the entire thing, and it kind of just clicked at some point. But yeah, we'll probably next week go over other normal stuff, but just know that this kind of stuff exists, the idea of sorting, and I would suggest maybe rewatching the video at some point this week when you're feel more comfortable. I'll put some videos on either way to visualize bubble sort. And another thing I highly suggest is just going ahead and like one thinking about each iteration of the for loop, what is going on, and maybe like console.logging different parts and just seeing how they change as the for loop goes along. um hope you're able to learn something. And again, it's okay if you don't understand. This is very complicated, and we'll keep talking about it as we go along, but also know that it's not that important that you understand it right now. Just keep learning this kind of thing as you go along, and eventually it'll get easy. But there's no rush to learn it.
Is I and J mean the same thing?
There are different
On the
variables. Yeah, they do not mean the same thing. There are different variables here, just different names for variables. Again, I could have named this apple.
Yeah, but you refer to the array, the number in the array.
Yes. You also notice here that again, the reason why I didn't want to show this one first is because it's a little more confusing. Because this one, yeah, you're not actually referring to it in the array. Again, all of this is staying the same. You're just referring to I, right? But J is basically saying, okay, do this for loop a number of times equal to one less than the length of the array. Length of the array right now is 5. So we're just saying, okay, do this for loop 4 times.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a little. It's technically no different than this array. We're just not actually using the J variable. We're using it as like just okay, do it 4 times or do it 99 times.
Like a count
Yeah.
it. Mm.
All right. We'll go ahead and wrap up class there. Hope you're able to learn something. And again, class is still on Tuesday. This is just a temporary thing, moving it to Wednesday. It is still on Tuesday as normal. And I'll post more links to help understand bubble sort. And then next week we'll go over something a little more easy, a little more normal.
But I found it
okay, go
really
ahead.
good to have it because it teaches a lot of basic algorithm and function stuff.
Yeah.
It's a good thing to have it in the beginning. Yes.
Yeah, it's nice, especially for nested loops and understanding arrays. And it's cool because you actually use this and not like other, challenge algorithm, like do this very specific thing. It's like this is something that's very much used and has been made very, efficiently.
Sure, but normally you use the built-in ones, like in JavaScript, just
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. For almost all normal purposes, you just use array.sort.
Right.
It's just going to be quick enough. Really, the point of sorting array algorithm, like the reason why there's like 20 different ones, is because various businesses are using like arrays in the millions. You need to sort a million different data structures. And then more importantly, too, is that a lot of searching a logarithm, which is entirely another thing. Basically, let's say you had a phone book, right? If you wanted for a normal phone book, if you wanted to search for a specific number, it's very easy. It's already sorted for you. But let's say you had a phone book that's now randomized, and that phone book had a million phone numbers in them, and they were all randomized. It's gonna be almost impossible to find anything. You just have to go page by page. So the point of sorting is the most efficient way possible to sort all those million phone numbers and names, and then go ahead and you can use now a new, more efficient searching algorithm to then search it. So it's a very complicated topic, one that you're expected to know as a programmer, but you don't use that much. For
No,
almost all cases, you just use array.sort.
because the algorithm are nearly built in all languages, or you have a library to use it.
Yeah.
Right.
Basically, people who have spent much more of their lives, like mathematicians spent much more of their lives finding the most efficient sorting logarithm, so you can just use theirs, You don't need
Right.
to understand how it works, really.
Yeah. But
All
I
right.
think it's especially for the normal ones like bubble sort, quick sort, maybe one or
Yeah.
two more, so that she understands how the functions work, maybe even how recursive. I think recursive would be fine to learn it a
Yeah.
bit more.
I would say be careful teaching recursion. It's just very complicated. I would suggest there are efficient VS Code. There are a lot of tools that will let you like go line by line as it's being created, right? You run a function and then it will stop it. You make stop points and it will say line by line what each variable is as it's going. That really helped me with recursion because it showed me like what each variable is as the new function is being created, and you can like see the functions being created and then them all coming back up. That helped me a lot with recursion.
That's a good idea. I could have a look in her visual coding. She has this visual coding from
Mhm.
Excelis, so
Oh yeah.
probably they have recursive there. Because that's exactly what it is. It shows you step by step how these things work. So
Mhm.
that's how they visualized the nested loops last week.
Yeah.
So probably they have recursion too. I will have a look at it.
Yeah, and actually, I can actually see real quick. I see REPL actually does have something similar
That
to it.
has
So
it
like,
too. You can do stop points and you can do step by step.
yeah, like if I run it here, it doesn't seem to, but there might be a way. I'll look into that. But yeah, well, that was a either a fun session or a completely confusing one. Hopefully, with somewhere in between. So, see you next week, same time on Tuesday, and have a nice weekend.
Have a nice weekend to you too. Thanks a lot.
Hey, you. Bye.
Bye.